The sky was painted a shade of deep indigo, as if an artist had used an endless array of blueberries to craft the perfect hue. Her name was Lily, and she had always known that she was different. From the moment she had first laid eyes on another girl and felt a fire ignite within her chest, she had known that she was destined for something more. Something deeper, something real. She had tried to deny it, to push it down and forget, but the feeling had only grown stronger over time. It consumed her thoughts, her dreams, her every waking moment. On this particular night, as she stood there at the edge of the lake, she couldn't help but feel as if the world around her had suddenly grown quiet. As if all of the voices that had once clamored for her attention were finally silenced, leaving her alone with her own thoughts and feelings. It was a rare and precious moment of clarity, and she intended to make the most of it. As she stood there, lost in thought, she began to wonder if there were others out there like her. Others who felt the same way she did, who longed for a connection that went beyond the superficial. Perhaps they too were standing by lakes, staring up at the same moon, wishing for something more. The thought both comforted and troubled her. Comforted because it meant that she wasn't alone, that there were others who understood her feelings. Troubled because it made her wonder how she would ever find them, how she would ever discover the depth of connection she craved. She took a deep breath, feeling the cool night air fill her lungs. As she exhaled, she let the question go, deciding instead to focus on the here and now. She reached out her hand, letting the cool water lap at her fingertips. The sensation was both calming and invigorating, as if the lake were somehow able to tap into her innermost feelings and soothe them. As she stood there, lost in thought, she became aware of a presence nearby. At first, she thought it was nothing more than the wind rustling through the trees. But as she listened more closely, she realized that it was something else entirely. It was the sound of footsteps, soft and steady, coming closer and closer. Her heart began to race as she turned to face the source of the sound. There, standing a few feet away, was another figure. A girl, just like her, with long, flowing hair and eyes that seemed to shimmer in the moonlight. For a moment, they simply stood there, taking each other in, unsure of what to say or do next. Finally, the girl mustered the courage to speak. "Hello," she said, her voice barely audible over the sound of the water. "My name is Rose." Lily felt a shiver run down her spine at the sound of her name on the other girl's lips. She forced herself to speak, her voice wavering slightly. "Hello, Rose." She took a step forward, feeling an inexplicable pull toward the other girl. It's nice to meet you." They stood there in silence for a moment, each lost in their own thoughts, each wondering what fate had brought them to this place at this moment in time. The air between them seemed to crackle with an electricity that was both exhilarating and terrifying. Lily found herself wishing for something to say, some way to break the silence and ease the tension. As if sensing her discomfort, Rose took a tentative step forward, closing the gap between them. "I've been feeling different for as long as I can remember," she confessed in a soft voice. "Like there's something more out there for me, something I'm meant to find." Her eyes met Lily's, and in that moment, Lily knew that Rose was speaking not just for herself but for both of them. Lily swallowed hard, her throat suddenly dry. "I know what you mean," she managed to say. "It's like there's a part of us that's missing, and we're searching for it, but we don't know how." She took another step closer, feeling a strange sense of comfort in Rose's presence. The two girls stood there for a moment, lost in their own thoughts, each contemplating the depth of their connection. The moonlight danced across their faces, casting shadows and highlights that made them appear ethereal, otherworldly. Lily could feel the weight of her loneliness lifting from her shoulders, replaced by a sense of hope and possibility. Rose took a step closer, her hand reaching out to brush against Lily's. The touch was gentle, but it sent a jolt of electricity through her. "I've always felt like I belonged somewhere else," she confessed, her voice barely above a whisper. "Like this world is just a dream, and the real one is somewhere else entirely." Lily nodded, her eyes never leaving Rose's face. "I know what you mean," she said softly. "Sometimes I feel like I'm living someone else's life, you know? Like I'm just waiting for the moment when I'll wake up and realize who I really am, where I'm supposed to be." The girls stood there in silence for a moment, their fingers still intertwined. Lily could feel the warmth of Rose's skin against hers, the steady rhythm of her breath. It was as if they were somehow connected, their bodies and souls linked in a way that transcended the physical world. I think we're not meant to know where we belong," Rose finally said, her voice barely audible over the sound of the water. I think we're supposed to find it, to discover it for ourselves. To uncover the truth, no matter how hard it is. Lily felt a shiver run down her spine at the other girl's words. There was something so raw and honest about them, something that resonated deep within her soul. You're right, she said, her voice steady despite the tremor in her chest. We have to keep searching, even when it's hard. Even when we feel lost. As if in agreement, Rose leaned in closer, their faces inches apart. Her breath fanned across Lily's cheek, sending a delicate shiver down her spine. We're not alone, she whispered. No matter what, we're not alone. Lily closed her eyes, feeling the truth of Rose's words wash over her. In that moment, she knew that they would find their way together, that they would uncover the secrets of their world and discover where they truly belonged. They would face whatever challenges lay ahead, and they would do it together. As if sensing her newfound resolve, Rose stepped back, her hand falling to her side. Come on, she said, her voice firm but gentle. Let's go find out what's hidden in this place. Together, the two girls began to explore the hidden chamber, their fingers trailing along the walls, their eyes taking in the intricate carvings that adorned every surface. They searched for clues, for hidden passages or secret compartments that might hold the key to their destiny. As they wandered deeper into the chamber, the air grew thick with anticipation. They could feel it in the way their hearts raced, in the way their bodies seemed to hum with energy. The moment felt charged, electric, as if something powerful and primal was stirring inside them both. Without warning, Lily found herself pressed against the cool, damp stone of the wall. Rose's lips were on hers, her hands tangled in her hair, urging her closer. Their breaths came in ragged gasps, mingling in a heated exchange as their tongues danced together. The world seemed to fade away, leaving only the two of them, lost in the intensity of their desire. Her heart hammered in her chest as Rose's fingers traced a path down her spine, teasing the hem of her shirt before grasping it and yanking it over her head. Beneath, she was bare, her skin glowing in the flickering light from the torch. Rose ran her hands up and down her arms, her touch feverish and possessive. Lily reciprocated, her own hands roaming over Rose's body, feeling the softness of her skin, the heat emanating from her core. She tugged at the hem of Rose's shirt, revealing more of her, bit by bit, until it lay in a heap at their feet. Her nipples hardened as she nipped at them gently, eliciting a moan of pleasure from Rose. They moved together, their bodies in perfect sync. Lily felt the wetness between her legs as she ground herself against Rose, wanting nothing more than to be joined with her. Rose's lips trailed down her neck, sucking and nipping at her flesh, driving her wild. She could feel the other girl's fingers teasing at her entrance, readying her for what was to come. With a groan, Rose pushed her inside, filling her completely. Lily arched her back, crying out in pleasure as their bodies met in a fierce, unrelenting union. She wrapped her legs around Rose's hips, holding her close as they moved together, their breath mingling in the air. The sensation was overwhelming, all-consuming, as if the world outside this chamber no longer existed. Time seemed to stand still as they made love, their movements growing more urgent, more desperate. They were two halves of a whole, their bodies in perfect harmony, their souls intertwined. As they neared the brink, as their orgasms threatened to consume them both, Lily felt a strange sense of peace wash over her, a knowing that this was where she belonged, with Rose. And then, as if it had been building to this moment all along, a rush of energy coursed through them, igniting something deep inside. They cried out in unison, their bodies convulsing together as they experienced an explosion of pleasure unlike anything they could have imagined. In that moment, they were more than lovers, more than friends. They were something greater, something more powerful. As the last echoes of their shared ecstasy faded away, they collapsed onto the cold, damp ground, their bodies tangled together. The chamber seemed to hum with an energy that was palpable, electric. They lay there, catching their breath, basking in the afterglow of their connection. I love you, Lily whispered, her voice barely audible over the sound of their hearts racing. I've always loved you. Rose smiled, her eyes shining with unshed tears. And I you, she replied, her voice trembling. I've always loved you, too. They stayed like that for what seemed like an eternity, lost in the depths of their love, their souls intertwined. Around them, the hidden chamber pulsed with life, its secrets waiting to be uncovered, its mysteries still to be explored. But for now, there was only them, together, forever.